Welcome back to Shifting Talent. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Clarence Carter. And Clarence is a director of business intelligence and systems at the Charlotte Regional Visitors Authority. Did I get that right? CRVA?
It's a mouthful. You got it.
So give us just a quick overview of yourself. Give folks a understanding of what your background is. I'm excited about the conversation we're going to have, but just take a moment to introduce yourself to get us started.
I love it. I love it. Look, Rob, I appreciate you having me here. And just a quick intro to me. I'm a man of many hats, right? But the ones that I lean on the most and I love the most is I'm a dad and I'm a husband, right? I'm a family man. First, my son's playing football last night up until about 11 o'clock at night. Wow. We're dealing with his football stuff, in football. But in the business world, look, I've been in the technology space for about 18 years or so. Being here in Charlotte, it's hard not to be at least touch finance. And so I spent many of those years in finance, going from a developer into data and analytics. And then now, as of late, in the hospitality and tourism industry. And so doing a lot of things on the business intel and system side. And I just love tech, man. I love tech just because, those are formal roles that I've held, but it's a day and night kind of thing with me. And so I'm addicted to this life.
Yeah, man, I'm so happy to have you on here and talking to our audience. I feel like we have a good core of a lot of junior engineers who follow HTD Talent and the programs that we produce here, but also there's a number of other tech leaders like yourself. And the whole goal of this show is making sure that we're getting a variety of perspectives and thinking about how this landscape is shifting when it comes to talent, when it comes to technology, of course, when it comes to AI. And I think you're going to bring a unique perspective here. So I kind of want to start out going through and just thinking about the current process for engineers who are coming into the industry, because headlines are everywhere, right? But I want to first focus on the computer science degree itself. And as we were talking before this, you were mentioning that, the computer science degree and that pathway has changed a bit. So I'm curious to understand more of what you mean by that, and also thinking about how universities can and should be trying to keep up with this current pace of innovation. So give us your thoughts on computer science degrees, where they're at, how things are changing, and the university side as well.
Yeah, look, this is it's a conversation that is happening more right now, and I'm happy about that. But this shift didn't just start now, right? Since COVID, right? Since the announcement of Gen AI and everybody getting access to this. This was a problem way before. And I mean that. And I'm so committed to this answer that I have bought the domain skillsetsoverscores.com.
Okay. All right.
There's nothing up on it. But I'm just saying, here's the thing. How I was able to progress within it. Yes, I do have a bachelor's degree in networking security management, but that wasn't the route that I actually went at all. And everything that I learned there was pretty much obsolete. And I hear that a lot, not just in our space, right? Not just in the tech space. If you go out there and read, over 80% of the people that have degrees never work in the field that they studied in college, right? And so what does that mean to especially employers today? They're looking for talent that is ready with the mindset of being able to do a particular thing, right? And so just having the degree, whatever level that you have, it's not enough in today's world. You have to be able to do something and prove that you've done it before, right? And so how higher level education is going to be able to compete with where we are today, I hate to say it, man, but I'm a little pessimistic. I really don't know if they will be able to compete. So if you look at things at a macro level, right? Real estate investors have come to this conclusion as well. There was a thing called the 2025 cliff. If you remember, over the last 3 to 4 years or so, How many schools did you hear about when new freshmen were coming in to move into their dorms and they didn't have a place to stay? That happened to my daughter. That happens to her friends. And it's still happening to this day. They call it the 2025 cliff because college enrollments have gone down. One, the price. Two, the value of them. People are starting to see that. Employers like Google and Meta are dropping the requirements for having those degrees. And then you got OpenAI. And with ChatGPT, did you see when they launched 5, they actually put a study model in there, study and learn model.
Interesting. No, I
so
hadn't
it's
seen
not
that.
just a lot. A lot of folks are, going to Gen AI to get answers, right? Just to write their essays for them and stuff like that. That's not what we're talking about anymore. You can actually use this. They claimed on their introduction that they will and are competing for that top spot in the education realm. Not just for giving answers, but to help you learn faster in the way that you learn. Traditional higher level education has a framework of how they do it. And you have to fit into that box. I was not good at school. I hated it. I went into the Marine Corps instead, but I hated it that much that I would rather go to Iraq than go to college right out of school. And I eventually came back,
Sure.
but it was just the way that I learned that wasn't catered to. Right. And so I have to be in the mix. And I think the realm that we're at, where we are in this environment, AI is going to give us a way, quantity, right, at scale where people can be able to learn the way that they learn using the analogies that will fit them to pick up a concept and understand it more. And they could do it at scale.
Yeah.
I just don't see how traditional higher level education can compete, especially in the way that it looks today. But if they'll even be fast enough to keep up with that, to catch up.
Yeah,
That's my thing.
it's like it's this interesting concept because I think on one hand, we've seen a lot of other sources develop to bring talent into the industry. Boot camps are a good example of that, where consumers can go pay money, learn how to do something. And we've seen, at least in recent years, they actually come out of the gates getting higher salaries than their peers with computer science degrees for the first couple of years. But there is a distinction, and I saw an article recently that was showing that a lot of boot camp grads at some point may actually level off, and they're those that have the computer science degree, we're using software engineers in this example, are continuing to grow at a faster rate as they get to the more experienced stages of their career. So they were pointing out that there is some inherent value in having the strong theoretical foundation that comes with school. But the point you're making is like, what's the trade-off on that? Is it worth the actual cost that you pay for that? And is it getting you in the door anymore? And is that changing now that we have AI, right?
Right. That's the thing. And I mean, look, I can open up a code editor, Codex in OpenAI's environment and literally build an entire application. Now, here's the thing. There's a lot more that goes into that. And I know we're going to get into that, later down the road. But you'll have to understand these concepts and foundational information to know that it's spitting out the right thing. But you can work so much faster. You can go from when I got in, I didn't learn this from school. This was me working with a mentor. And then when I was done working with him during the day, at nighttime, I'm turning my living room into a study room where I bring in my desk and my family's eat. I mean, this was sacrifice. My family's eating dinner at the dinner table, and I got my desk and I got my plate, and I pulled up YouTube and I'm watching someone, when Bootstrap came out, how they were putting it together, some tutorials. I think it was from LinkedIn, and I'm coding alongside of them.
Yeah,
right in my living room, and so it was, and that took me years to get proficient in it. Right. But doing that. But here's the thing. You can compress that time that I spent, 2 years of that. You can do that in 6 months.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
with the way things are going. And so There a lot has shifted, and a lot has shifted.
Yeah, tell us more about the mentorship aspect, because I love the way that you're describing that you had mentorship, but you were also putting in the work outside of that as well, right? And those two to me are important. You're not waiting for someone else to do it for you. You were getting the support, but you were also digging in and you had a yearning and desire to learn how to do these things. Can you tell us, if you were a junior engineer today, how would you go about finding the right kind of mentorship, and what kind of work would you be putting in on your own?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I will tell you I got lucky, right? Because this was early on. This was 20 years ago. I got out of the Marine Corps, and I'll just give you a quick story real quick. I got out of the Marine Corps, and I was still super young. I was 22 when I got out. I did my 4, and I went to the VA hospital to get evaluated. And it just so happened that as I'm waiting there in the hospital waiting room or so, there's a gentleman that is sitting right across from me. You know how the waiting rooms are set up, and you're kind of looking directly at someone, in these aisles. And he just started talking. He was a Navy Vietnam vet that was fighting for his disability checks, right? And I mean, he walked on a cane. He had cataracts. He was an Agent Orange, right? Like he was really messed up, and he was still fighting for his benefits. He just started telling me his story, and here I am, this 22-year-old kid, listening to this 65-year-old man tell me his war stories and everything. And then he asked me what I want to do. I told him I was looking at getting into technology on the programming side, and he said, "Well, hey, because I don't have my benefits, the way I support myself, and my wife is through coding, right? Is through building things for different businesses across the nation." I was like, wow. And we went on and on and on, but then he asked me, he said, "Young man, if I can do what I can do, right, and just support us. I got cataracts, I got all of these issues, and I feel like I'm about to die every single day. If I can do that, what can you do?" From that day on, I drove from Charlotte to Salisbury every single day, or at least every other day, for a few years, just to sit with him and learn the concepts, see what he was doing, and taking that, and it changed my life forever, obviously. And I mean, he eventually did pass away, but he passed on so much knowledge to me. But here's the thing: during that time frame that we had together, after that hour and a half long drive from where I was in Charlotte every single day and back, I take that information and I say, okay, cool. Well, he was building what he was building for this particular business. How can I build that same thing just for something else? Right? I came up with the idea. Let me build a quote website, right? And that had thousands and thousands of quotes, and would be able to generate certain things. And I just come up with these things, these pet projects, if you will. And did I get it right? Eventually, but it was taking what I was learning from the mentor, right? And the time, and maximizing the time that we spent together, but then re-embedding those same things that he had taught me in a different way. Right. And so that compounded my learning. And so I definitely both of those things together, I think it's critical to have a mentor, because they can see your blind spots.
Sure.
Right. They can see where not only do you not know this language, and that's what's needed to do what you need to do, but also, where is your confidence? Where is your courage? Where is your everything else? Not just the hard skills, but the soft skills. And they can show you how to merge those two things together. And so how do you find one? Look, man, you can go to the VA hospital. Yeah. That's one. But they can connect with people like yourself, Rob.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone and everyone that is giving out this kind of information and that cares, I would ask everyone. I was on a phone call 2 or 3 weeks ago, and with a buddy that gave my number out to someone, and then we had a conversation, and this person asked specifically, "Can you be my mentor?" So I think that is important, that you have to be willing to ask.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to know that you're not going to do this completely on your own. Well, you can, and
Sure.
you can do it with AI.
Sure.
But you can do it even faster for the way that complements the way that you learn when you're working with the right mentor.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And the thing that, look, you said you got lucky in the beginning. Luck was who you happened to bump into. But the mentorship was derived from you showing up, right? You putting in the work to go there every single day, right? To be able to soak up as much as you could from that mentor. And it goes both directions. I am certain that your willingness to go there, and as often as you did, and to actually show your interest, was part of what gave him the motivation to want to share that with you, right? So it really does go both ways. I always, I don't like when people start with the excuses of like, well, I haven't had, as many opportunities or whatever the case is. Like, yeah, the may or may not be true. And there's parts of life, like some people are going to get more than others. That's just the way that things are. But the ones that you get, you better take advantage of those, right? Like that's what you did. And look where you ended up.
Yeah, that's it, man. I mean, look, man, I mean, the world that we're in, I mean, this guy looked nothing like me. He was not in my generation. He was not even in the same branch of the military. And that is a strong thing, right? Like between Army and Marines and everyone, we have this thing, like who we connect with, like there's these in crowds. There was nothing there that was an in crowd with me and him besides he was interested in this thing and doing it. And he saw my interest level. And that's critical. And like you said, I mean, I love to tell people, but they'll chop it up to, oh, well, you were a Marine and you have this different mindset. No, I know plenty of people that are just as interested in things and they will become borderline obsessed with it, if you will. I mean, you don't even have to get there, especially not today with all the tools that are there. You just got to be willing to show up, right? Show up to that mentorship, but then show up for yourself. Right? Is this the thing? If this is the thing that you want, then prove it. Right? Because it's you can't when you're trying to learn something new. I won't say that I'm the fastest. Well, I do learn pretty fast now because I acknowledge the way that I learn. Right? That is one thing. Once you become self-aware on how you learn, now you can get past that that barrier at the very beginning or that obstacle at the very beginning, and now you can put yourself into certain situations, right? And a mentor will be able to help you do that, identify that as well, right? And so I just think it's super critical that you got to know that it's a desire of yours. Even if it doesn't feel like it's this like raging fire, if you just have this inclination that you think you can do it, keep doing it until you prove yourself wrong. Yeah. And it's been 20 years and I haven't proven myself wrong yet.
I love that. I love that story. I want you to help us to correct the headlines a little bit for the junior talent who are listening today and trying to break into the industry, because the headlines are reading that it's impossible for you to find a job, and unemployment rates for those even with degrees in IT and cybersecurity and computer science are struggling to get in, and you'll never get started. And you said something different to me. You said junior talent may have an advantage right now. I want to hear more about that. What's the advantage?
So here's the thing, right? When most people that will look at me, as a matter of fact, I get this every single day. You called it out. You said you're the director of business intelligence and systems, right? Now, most people will think, even though I'll tell them 50 times that I'm in the IT department. I'm not. I don't operate in the IT department. I have not been in the IT department, oh my gosh, in maybe 15 years. Maybe 15 years. But here it is. I'm an engineer. I'm coding. I'm creating. I was a full stack developer, right? But there's a little thing. Someone called it to me. I don't know if it's. I haven't never even really looked it up. But a gentleman he was a little bit older than me when I first got in. He called it shadow IT. So especially in banking, larger organizations, I want you to think about what does the IT department look like, right? When someone requests a new feature be built or this, there's a long drawn out process in order for it to come from the requestor, which may be the marketing department or such, right? And then it's got to go through the product manager, and then it's got to come to the product manager to the product manager to the project manager, right? Or maybe the program manager to the project manager, and then to the scrum master, and then at some point it gets into the sprint, right? That is a long process. So there are companies that are out there, plenty of them, and you know them all. You just don't realize it, that they have shadow IT that is folks like you and I, where these junior developers can play, is to come into, instead of you being in the IT department, you can be in the call center. And you can be on, quote unquote, the reporting team. That's what it's labeled, but you have access to your own servers, your own databases, your own everything. Why? Because you can be nimble enough for that department in the organization. And so that's where I played. And so junior developers, junior engineers, if you're trying to get into a place, if you can, most of those people that are, and think about and this is a hack. This really is a hack. What are the questions that the IT department is going to ask you versus the person that's over in the call center reporting team going to ask you? Right? There will be different. There's a difference in the fundamentals. Like over on, if you go to Meta and try to become a software engineer, they're going to ask you certain things like, can you create an algorithm that is, over regex and this and this, right? Super complicated. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't figure those things out. You absolutely should. But if you go over to someone that is in real need of a shadow IT person, like, hey, can you write a simple query? Can you tell me the functions of a query? Well, select, delete, update. And, oh, great. You're phenomenal. That's it. You know what? You got it. And then here's the thing too. Like juniors, you are not so ingrained into the work that you speak about it as if you speak about it from a sense that you're talking to someone and they just can't understand what the heck you're talking about that's not in your industry. So junior developers, because you aren't so ingrained into this jargon, if you will, right? Using the terminology that most people that want the stuff done that you're building it for will never understand. You have the leverage over someone that has many, many, many years of experience because they will use language that people will not understand and it goes over their head. Where you can tell stories about, hey, I built a system that allows me to text my Christmas tree on and off. Right? The IT manager, right? Or whoever that is on the developer side, but tell me more about that. But if you tell that story over to someone that actually wants the work done in a smaller or less IT focused realm, they're like, oh, that was cool. Tell me a little bit more. And then they will start to associate those things with what they need done. Right. And so and you could just go so much further. Much further and so much faster, and you'll get more recognition in those types of roles too. So that, yeah, I could go on and on and on for days. And that has been my experience. That is not just me making something up. I literally walked into an interview and someone at the very first question that they asked me, it was for a Java developer that was able to create APIs and all of this kind of stuff, right? The question that they asked me was, hey, can you tell me the functions of a query? I was like, is this a trick question? Well, this, and this. Well, what are the results? And then the second question was, well, what are the results what do you call the results from a query? I'm like, a result set? The rows that you get? Is that what are you talking about here? Or what more do you want to know? It's like, no, that's right. And that was the interview. That was the interview. And I stepped in from, and I'll give you some numbers. I stepped from that, I was in a $75,000 a year job at that point, when I did that interview, I walked into $120,000 that year.
Interesting.
With those two questions, that was the
Yeah.
interview.
Define for
Just saying.
people precisely, like what are the names of these roles, just so that we're tracking properly, right? Because you were a considered a Java developer, right? So then, like, what did you kind of transition into?
So it was, yes, as a contractor, the way it was contracted through the company that I was contracting through, one of the larger organizations. It was written as a PHP slash Java slash SQL developer. That was the actual title, and then the description. It was ridiculous, right? Like the amount of algorithms and Java, heavy Java focused. I never touched Java one time in that job, which was very interesting. So be careful of the people that are writing these job descriptions and job titles typically don't know what they're doing. So just go forward, right? And so it's about communication.
Yeah. Also,
So
like
I
like
wish I could.
that's the
Yeah,
piece there, right? Because
yeah.
I think, and obviously, communication can be a differentiator for a young person coming in. How do you develop that and get yourself into the mindset of maybe just understanding well enough who your audience is so you can properly communicate to separate yourself from those who are like, I'm just a coder. This is all I do. And you're saying, no, you are a technologist who can communicate with the business, and that matters.
You'll make more money there. So, you'll make more money there. But what I'm actually saying when I say that is you make more impact,
Okay. Yeah.
direct impact that you can see, right? And so I'm very passionate about that. But the communication piece, one guy in that role. And, I didn't tell you, Trent. When I went from being a contractor in that role as a PHP slash Java developer, when they took me on full time, I was actually a business analyst.
Okay. Yeah.
Business analyst.
Yeah.
So that was the actual official role
Sure.
once going full time. But in that role, in that same role, not only did they bring me on right away, I had gotten to the point where I could talk to people. I was able to do the work and build the internal applications that they needed from top to bottom, right? Everything that they need, I was able to adjust it, but then able to communicate that out. Now, I was welcomed into a room where the person that was running that department, it was that one department brought in about $2.6 billion a year. And so they wanted a presentation based around the data. And so here it is. I think I was maybe 2.5 years into the organization. They paired me up with someone that had been there for about 12 years or so. And he was a very super analytical. I'm analytical as well, but more of the just nerdy, right?
Okay.
More of the
Yeah.
nerdy side
Uh-huh.
of things, and really wanted to go into the complexity of all of the details associated with this project that they wanted presented. He took lead, and I was the support of helping him out. My advice to him was, hey, I don't think we should put this in the presentation. It seems a little overkill for this audience. He said, no. You don't understand. You don't know them. I've been here. Roger that. I'm taking your lead. Now, just before the day before the presentation, the person that is just basically the director of operations, managing director of operations, he wanted to look at our presentation before we took it, over the next day. He looked at it and said, "What is this? You need to look. I don't care. She's a Harvard MBA. You think that she's extra smart and this and that, but this presentation, you need her and anyone else. You need to present it to the point that a kindergartner can understand what it is you're presenting."
Yeah.
I took that step back, and the Marine in me is like, looking at the guy like, I told you so. But but we went back and we revamped it, and we took out of the complexity. Look, complexity kills momentum.
Hmm.
And so if you can bring things down, I hate to say dumb down, but that's something that you would do is bring this out to the point where they don't have to, use, 100 calories trying to understand what it is that you said, right? Get them the meat, get them the what they need to make a decision, right? And so I think that's where you got to come in and say, hey, if I'm using the term API, does this business person know what an API is, right? Do they know what the algorithm that we built? Do they need to know all of those details, right? Or just what to put in so that we can get X out, right? Think about those kind of things. If you can't explain it to your an elementary school person, then don't say it. Really focus in on just becoming more simple, and in that way you can be able to elevate and have these conversations in any room. And now you're not just the engineer, but you also come into the role of the translator of what's being built, and you can build it, and you can be the one to be in the room with the decision makers.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't that
That's
just
powerful.
translate for career growth as well? Because, like, if you're going to be an IT leader, I know everyone wants to keep their hands dirty with the technology, but the further you move up, the more you're going to end up in those situations of being able to translate and talk to the business. How do we take what the business actually needs and take technology to enable that? And how do we explain to the business what the capabilities and limitations are in a simple format so they get it, where it's not just like, you can't get it, we can't do that because of this technical reason that no one understands, but it's simple terms, stupidly simple terms, to allow everyone in the conversation to be just understanding of what we are actually able to do so we can make a decision together that drives business forward, because that's what tech is supposed to do, right? It's supposed to enable the business to drive further, faster, more efficiently, and more securely, right?
Absolutely. That's the technology. When the wheel was invented, right? During caveman days, that is technology. Right? Every technology does not exist without every other industry.
Yeah.
Right? Because it is the force, if you will, it is the complementer that takes things to a whole nother level. And so you have to think about it from that standpoint. You just because you can write code doesn't mean that you're great at what you do. It has to be applied to something, right? And the more you learn about that was my thing. Was I was in many different industries: sales and marketing, building all applications for sales and marketing, real estate, finance, the tourism and hospitality, a ton of different industries. But because I wanted the growth, I wanted to work on more projects. I had to understand the business more. And when you start to understand what their overall goals are, how the business actually works, how it stands foundationally, first of all, that's going to give you the leg up of being able to build things that you weren't even taxed to do. Right. And now you become a huge player within that realm. But then this career growth, I mean, think about it. Do you want to be, if you're getting into this as a junior person, regardless of what age you are, towards retirement age, do you still want to be in the same position? My answer to that question is no. Right? I do want to be the one that is helping make the decisions on what needs to be built. I do want to be the one to help mentor other people that are under me, right? Or that want to come into this and show them how to build these things as well, right? So now it's an impact thing. I'm impacting the company, and I'm also impacting the growth of those that are around me that want to do certain things. So I think you got to ask yourself that question: what impact do you want to make in this realm, right, of technology?
Yeah. Yeah. And the conversation kind of pushes me back to thinking about, look, it all starts with understanding the fundamentals. For you to be able to communicate effectively, you also need to know, again, fundamentally, how these things actually work so that you can provide the right context for the business. I wonder if you can speak to junior talent getting started today in any tech capacity, having this fantastic tool of AI at their fingertips that, if used effectively, can be a huge multiplier on the work that they are delivering. But I also see sometimes it's being abused in what I would call people relying on it to a point that they don't actually have to understand some of the fundamentals. So, how do you think about the need to balance people being able to leverage these tools so that we can do more work more efficiently, but also how we introduce these tools so that people do understand the fundamentals before they start relying on them too heavily?
That is a great question. And so just the way that I use, Gen AI, I make sure that it understands my learning styles, right? Because yeah, there are times where I want a quick fix and give me the answer. But the majority of the time, the large majority of the time, I don't just want the answer. I want to understand it. And now, I mean, we're at a time and space where, I was give you a quick example. My mom, right? My mom was studying for a notary test. She became a mobile notary a couple years ago, and she is a test and score freak, right? Like she's like, I got us get 100% on it, and this. And I'm like, Mom, well, you only need 80% to become a notary, but it is what it. I understand. I got it. I got it. Because it's about doing the thing, not just achieving whatever piece of paper you're going to put up on your wall. That's the way I look at it. And so she was nerve wracking. She was never really good at math. And in this was loan documentation or so, right? And so on the test, there were, different equations that she had to solve for. And she was like, oh, my arch nemesis, math. I was like, well, Mom, here's the thing. You love going to the beach. You love the sand. You love the ocean. You love that, and you love the vacationing. How about you use AI? And she's like, I did use AI. And it gave me the answer, but I still don't understand it. I said, did you tell it to teach it to you as if it was talking to you about going on vacation to the ocean? And then she did that, and it gave her, I don't even remember what it was. It was like, hey, if you had, this number of shells and this many miles to drive, to this beach and that beach. And it put it into a perspective that not only she could understand, but she was interested in understanding, right? Like it just grabbed her. And so for the people that are, how do you leverage AI to help you go on board? Do something like that. I did not start with, technology. I was good at, I was okay with computers when I was younger. You remember LimeWire?
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of dating myself, right? I would be the one in the my friend group that would create everyone's CDs and all of that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't consider myself, I was like my knowledge was just exponential at that age. It just wasn't. But I started to find ways to whatever I was already interested in and merge those in how I was learning this, right? So you can use AI in that form to mix and blend if you're not already pre-set up, if you will, for this type of mindset. Help me understand it with something that I already love, right? I don't know if it's music or something. Teach me coding as if a musician would teach another musician, right? And in those ways. And then here's the thing, go and build. Just build something, right? I started building as soon as Alexa, the Amazon Echoes, when those came out, I immediately went forward and said, hey, I'm going to build something on AWS. I'm going to build one of these apps on Alexa. And I built the first, I don't know if you remember the TV show Family Matters, with Steve Urkel and everything. I built the one like a trivia about Family Matters on the Echo, right? And that was purely just to see I wanted to learn the platform, how to, they needed my code to be formed and all of that, right? All of the results and everything, how I needed to set up my servers because I didn't use AWS. I used my own servers. And so that was a way of me kind of learning. I encourage you to look into your life and see what it is, whether it's a funny thing like that. My son was in elementary school. I built an application that would go and scrape the lunch list because he's a very picky eater. It would scrape the lunch menu for the week, pile that into a database, do some other stuff with some manipulations, and then I'd be able to interact with it talking to my Alexa. Like, hey, Alexa, tell me what's for lunch for the next 5 days so that I know if we needed to make his lunch or not. Right? And so it was a solution that just, because, oh my gosh, navigating the school's website was horrible, right? Even if you bookmarked it the way that they had their JS set up, it was just horrible. And so I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to wake up in the morning, ask the question. And so that's my thing. Find a way to merge it with your life in many different ways.
Yeah. I hope people are hearing what I'm hearing. Over and over again, you have told stories that displayed your level of curiosity and then problem solving that went into solving an everyday problem that you had. And you have described at this point already 3 or 4 different just projects that you built that were things that were just usable in your everyday life to solve a problem. When I hear this from hiring managers all the time, this is what they want to hear from an engineer that they're hiring. It's not necessarily about just knowing all the answers to the tech questions. They want that curiosity. They want that problem solving. More and more, we're hearing that is the thing that's lacking. As more and more people go into computer science thinking of it as a career path, and yet not everybody seems to have the mindset of an engineer. I would love to ask you about that and what you see typically when you are interviewing young people for positions in tech. Is your experience similar to that? And like, what are the things that pop out to you?
It is exactly that. It is exactly that. They'll come and they're expecting for them to break down particular frameworks and all sorts of things, right? Like how they're doing object-oriented coding. They're looking to do those things and tell me that. Look, I can go and review all of that, right? Like I don't, again, that terminology, I don't care if you can talk the talk.
Yeah.
Right? I don't care about that anymore. And I don't, and to take that a step further, it's not just me, but for me being able to get into the roles that I've been able to get into, I've told them these same stories. And that was the thing. The interview immediately went from them asking me questions, coding questions, and trying to assess my knowledge, went to, oh, well, how did your son like his lunches?
Yeah.
Or how did, right? Like, oh my goodness. So can you text the Christmas tree right now? Can I actually see it? And literally it goes off the rails. And now, like with any interview, it's not just about you showcasing your knowledge. It's about building the connection with the individual that is interviewing you, right? Because to a certain extent, the hiring managers are looking for someone that they think will gel with the culture, that they think that they can actually work with every single day. That is another huge component. And so when you can merge, knowing that they're looking for someone that they can, go to lunch with and laugh about different things because they're interested in this world. And if you're just here just for a check, that won't make for a good, experience. Yeah. Right. And so when you can merge like your curiosity, the things that you've done with what they're looking for in these stories and the things that you're doing, we can bring that together in an interview. It just sets you apart from everyone else because everyone thinks that they're just going to talk about their degrees and that they worked on X project that increased revenue by $10 million and everyone's doing the same thing and putting the same thing on their resumes. How
Yeah.
are you going to set yourself apart, right? Because yeah, you may have worked on that project, but I know doggone well that was probably a 50,000 person organization. There were probably at least 50 other people on your team, and you could have built just one little simple thing or been on one call. And then you put that on your resume. I'm not impressed, or it doesn't matter if I'm impressed, but I don't hear the skill set in that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You allow things to shine through. And remember, people are people, right? We all have families. We all have outside lives. We all have hobbies. How can you tie in your love and your curiosity for this industry with actual people stuff and show that in an interview? I can guarantee you put yourself in a realm where no one will compete with you.
Is there a way for that to bleed through on a resume that young people should be thinking about showcasing better on their resume versus, what you just talked about? Or how can they actually showcase the curiosity and problem solving that they do have and how they've applied it so that it bleeds through to an interview?
That is a great question. I mean, my thing is this, right? Like the way we're kind of looking at resumes, and there's a lot of AI tools that are looking at resumes now and associating grades with them, and then we're only looking at those that match above 80% or so. The big thing is that is a great one, man. I mean, my thing has always been focused on keywords.
Sure. Okay.
Right. It's always been focused on keywords. I think that if you can showcase your education, I typically put that as the lowest on the totem pole on the resume, unless you know that there is some alumni.
Okay.
Right. That is there. Right. And so I think you need to study. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. Every time that I'm going for an interview or so, I will study the heck out of whoever is going to be in that room. If I can get the name of the hiring manager, the people that are going to be on the panel or anything like that, I'm going on LinkedIn. I'm going on any other social that I can find. And I'm looking and combing for information about them. And then I guess that's before no. Because working with some recruiting companies, right? They'll kind of let you in on, you'll know some things up front.
Yeah.
And then from there, now I know, hey, here's some of the things that they're kind of interested in. And I'll just put key words in there. I can't tell a full-blown story on a resume, but I want to look for just key words in a particular area. So I think it's really about research in the industry that you're going for. And I know this, well, look, there's AI now, so you can edit your resume, faster than before.
Sure.
But if you had a little bit of inside information on the industry, on the company, then tailor some things to it to point out keywords. That's really the thing. It's kind of hard, but I would focus on skills, right?
Yeah.
What skills do you have? And I don't always put, if it's a half. It's half and half where I'm putting the hard skills, the soft skills, right? That's one thing there that sets people apart, because everyone's talking about the languages and everything that they've learned, what schools they've kind of been to. But if you can highlight a lot of the soft skills in there, like you took a communications course, you gave presentations on XYZ. When you can start to put some of those things in there, that will generate a lot of curiosity, right?
Yeah.
So, this person knows how to, because years ago, most engineers are the ones with the headphones on. They're locked in and they don't want to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
I think those roles are a little at risk.
Yeah.
Or so.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. But it's a commodity, right? Like that's something. If all we're going to do is just code to solve a problem, why can't we can have the lowest cost resource anywhere in the globe do that for us? It's like, what are you bringing to the table that actually is going to change or drive business value? Business value. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So this is super fascinating, and hearing you talk about it. One of the themes when it comes to resumes, especially in the age of AI, it's just leading me down this path that the system as we have known it is kind of broken now. Because not only do companies get thousands of applicants, but many of the candidates have used AI as best they possibly could to cater their resume, and it is difficult to stick out. There's this old phrase that I haven't heard as much recently, which is your network is your net worth. And I think that there is just an urgent need for engineers at every level to push themselves to be in conversations in places where you can meet people, because we're finding it is harder and harder for your resume to get you a job interview. You can't stick out through all the noise. But if you know people, man, that's the path that is going to allow you to have interviews, to drive conversations. We hear stories all the time of people who didn't even have a job opening, but they're like, oh, you're looking? Oh, let's 100% have a conversation here. We've met you at these events. I've heard the stories. You're super curious. You're a problem solver. We need more people like that here. And so we're going to create a position for you. I'm sure you have seen this time and time again, but what's your advice to engineers, to just tech professionals in general, in terms of getting out from behind the computer and talking to people in the industry and making sure that you have those friends so that your network can be your net worth?
Yeah. Look, Rob, man, you gave me goosebumps, asking that question, man, because that job that I told you about a little earlier, the Java developer, PHP developer one, it came through someone at a recruiting company. And it came through because we had met at a networking event.
Wow. At
Taco Mac. I don't know if you remember Taco Mac over in South Park, years ago. And we just had fun. It was a coding event, but he was a recruiter. And this was probably 2 years later. 2 years later that he reached out to me. I ended up getting another job somewhere else before that. But he ended up remembering me from that night and saw my resume and everything. And then he said, hey, man, I thought of you. And I looked at the job. I was like, are you sure about this? He was like, no, it's you. Right? Because even though they put that as the job description, I know exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah.
See, that's the key, right? In working with folks like yourself, Rob, is you have you've got the connections, you've got the insider information. And look, man, I got goosebumps because I thought about myself as if like I'm a basketball player or a football player or, a sports player, baseball player, and you're my agent, right? and the agent, it has your best interests at heart. And they're the ones they're expanding your reach, right? But you have that information. And so you can do it so much more eloquently than I can. And that's your day to day, right? Like I may be in a full-time job already, right? Or I could be looking from my perspective and that could be wrong. But you're able to go out there and bring the quality, fish, if you will, to me, right? And set me up appropriately because what is going on. And so I'll give you, another example. Another guy hit me up a couple years ago, and I got him in, I met him through another person that was in the same recruiting company. I got into a role. That role, man, it was dynamic. It was an industry it was in an industry that I loved. It was great. The work was good. But the environment was hell. And I mean that. Like the CTO that I reported directly up to, I mean, he would cuss people out. He would, be fighting back and forth with the product manager. And I mean like fighting, like arguing. And then I would, this was like my first or second week there. I was seeing this going on, them like almost fist fighting. And I looked around at everyone else. I'm like, is this normal? And it's like, oh yeah, they're like husband and wife. I was like, no, that's not like husband and wife. That is not. But it was in an industry that I loved, and I stayed there until COVID happened, and they laid off 80% of the IT department, right? And so I was one of those that got laid off. And, I had experienced a lot of that. It was stressful. But again, I loved the industry and I loved the work. And so I stayed. The recruiter that placed me there knew exactly what was going on, not just through me telling him what was going on, but through a lot of other placements and a lot of other people in the industry that he had heard, that he was constantly hearing stories about what happened. He would call me at least once a week, like, hey, I heard that this happened. You okay? He was so in tune. And a year, maybe a year and a half after I gotten laid off, he gave me a call and he said, hey, look, I remember what you went through and you kept going, and you're probably one of the most motivational people I've ever met to be able to stick it out in that and the way that you handled it. He said, I don't have this role, but a friend of mine has this role and I think it fits you perfectly. And I owe you a service because I put you in that position. Man, it elevated me. The role, it gave me a lot more, it elevated me to another level. And the only reason I was able to get that, and that wasn't even his role, is because we kept that relationship fresh. He was able to see who I was at not just my skill set, but to the person that I am.
Yeah.
And he connected with that and put me in this thing and thought of me a year and a half later. That was something that wasn't even his. He didn't even really get paid off of it.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But it's
So
the
that's my
relationship.
thing. I think it's super important that you're out there networking with folks like yourself, right? But then just other people in the industry. You just have to. What's the lay of the land, right? Allow people to see who it is that you are. Because, it is true. You're not just going to... It is true that relationships are everything. And, unfortunately, nepotism exists and all of those kind of things. And people hire their buddies. Well, get your butt out there so you can make buddies, right?
Yeah.
Put yourself in a position. I'm just saying, like, stack the deck.
Yeah.
Get the resume going.
Exactly. What's the worst that could happen? You get out there, you put yourself out there, you make more friends. And the number of professionals I talk to who are 20 years into their career who can tell me about multiple jobs they've had because of their relationships, their network, their friends. People went to a company, role opened, it was perfect for them, they brought them in. Like, this is the kind of thing I want to keep encouraging people to do because of where we sit today. And there are challenges that are causing even bigger systemic issues than we've ever seen in the tech industry, because now there is so much automation built in. And the big question is, how do you stick out? Well, go meet somebody, right? That's a huge way that you can stick out. I hate that we have to wrap this up, but here's where I want to end things. I want you to kind of backtrack a little bit in your career and give yourself some advice as you were an early engineer coming up, and think about the environment and all the information that you have today of where we sit in 2025. What does success look like for a junior engineer today who wants to progress in their career? What should maybe people stop worrying about? And where do they need to double down to get the most impact out of their career? I know you talked about a lot of these things today, so I kind of want to just sum it up.
Yeah.
Where do they focus? What do you stop worrying about? Where do you double down?
Focus on solutions, right? And we're at a place in time. If if I thought about it, talking to myself, back then, it would have been focused on one language and get acquainted with it and build solutions with it. But I think we're at a different stage today. So if it were me today giving me advice, it would be literally focused on finding the problems, right? Finding problems, because when you understand that problem, the better you understand the problem, that's when the solution shows up, right? And so go faster so you can go further, right? And so the faster learner is the highest earner, right? And so that's the if I was to sum it all up, the fastest learner is the highest earner. And so you got to go not just learn the technology, but go and learn the problem in that arena. And then that way, now as you develop this understanding of the problem, it's like, oh, I know what the solution is now. Think about, a car mechanic, right? They're diagnosing. And, just like with coding, right? You're troubleshooting. Once you understand what the problem is, now you know how to fix it, right? You don't have to come up with the solution. It reveals itself. And so go be solution or problem focused, right? Problem identification focused, because that will show the solution. And, you can go a whole lot faster and get your butt, do that half the day and then get with folks like yourself, Rob. Get with, meetup.com and find a place to just immerse yourself into this, right? I think immersion is where people kind of they don't go all in on this. And so day and night, right? Like if this is what you want, then how are you can utilize ChatGPT in your bed and read something quick about whatever new software that is out there or new ways of developing software. Just a quick 10-minute thing, right? Do that, put yourself in those arenas, and then just consistent action every single day, in understanding the problems that exist in whatever field you're trying to go into. And I wouldn't focus on just purely IT, right? Because there's a model that they work within, right? And everyone's going that route. If you focused on other areas where there are people that need you, and they want to go faster or further, even in large organizations like 100,000 plus people, there are pockets that are in there. And, Rob, I'm pretty sure you know about some of those roles as well. Try to focus in on those.
Yeah.
Right. Because there's a little bit of gold there. Go fast. Yeah. The fastest learner is the highest earner.
I love that phrase. The fastest learner is the highest earner. And we're not just talking about the tech skills. It's everything we talked about. The fastest learner on the skills, the fastest learner on communication, the fastest learner on the networking. That is the highest earner. Man, I just want to say thank you for sharing your knowledge and your stories. Your stories with those who are, looking to further their careers, to break in, to go further, faster. This is the valuable information that I think people want to hear. And I want to thank you for taking your career and sharing that with the group. It's just honestly been an honor having you on here. I know you're putting out content on LinkedIn, so I want to tell everybody, please follow Clarence on LinkedIn. The algorithm wasn't pushing it to me. I had to go find it and subscribe. So make sure you do that so you can see it, because there's some real truth that's coming out there. So Clarence, thank you for being here. This was a lot of fun.
Rob, I appreciate you. Thank you, sir. Hopefully it served your community, man.